people really don't understand how rates are set. And you know, the regulatory process in both Illinois and Missouri is one that you spend the dollars and then you get reimbursed later under certain guidelines. And so when you have an economy like we do today, when you have increasing cost, so when we go out to borrow money, you know, we're still, because just because the financial markets to being what it is, it's costing us more to borrow that money. You know, 10 years ago, utilities were seen as very safe investments, and so you could borrow
bonds.
money. Exactly, you could borrow
bonds
money
were safe.
At a very low rate. Today, it's not like that, and the rates that we borrow at are very, you know, much higher than they were. Sometimes 7 or 8%. Sure. I mean, almost, you know, in today's economy, any business is seen as a risk, and the risk that investors look at us for is that Missouri has like the 4th lowest rates in the United States, and so they look at, okay, should we loan this company money? And they have the lowest rates, and then they have a regulatory environment that isn't that friendly. Are we going to be able to really recoup our dollars? You know, and what impact does this type of loan have on the company?
I think people don't really understand that utilities are not like Blockbuster. If Blockbuster's charging $3 for a DVD today, tomorrow they can say, it's $3.50 or $3.75, and it's their decision.
Right.
The electric price that you get for your product is not decided by you, is it?
No, our prices are set, and we cannot, by what we call a tariff by law in both Illinois and Missouri. You cannot change that tariff unless you go back in front of the commission and have a whole regulatory process to review it, and then they decide again.
What would happen if there was a free market system of electricity?
I think in a free market, if you look at other states that have free market, electric prices would probably double. If you have competition, you look at places like Texas, Maryland, that have deregulated markets, their prices are anywhere from 20 to 50% higher than they are in the Midwest that we have.
Why? Because they can charge it and people have to pay?
Right, and it's you know...
So the regulatory regime is actually good for the customer?
Well, I believe so. By having a regulatory environment, even Missouri and Illinois are different. You know, Missouri is strictly all regulated. Illinois is what's considered a deregulated state. And Missouri, the rates are about 30% less than they are in Illinois, because Illinois had to go out to the market and buy their electric. And most people don't realize this, but in Illinois, a utility company that's a distribution company cannot own generation. So they have to go out and buy the power that they sell to the customer from someone else. They buy that at market price. And so when they bought and had the last auction, the prices were high. Just like the stock market, they buy electric on the market. In Missouri, AmerenUE owns its own power plants. And so we can generate the electric, use it ourselves, and then anything that we don't use for Missouri, we sell on the open market to other companies. And so if we make money selling it to other companies, those dollars come back and reduce the cost to Missouri customers. That's why Missouri customers only pay about 7 cents a kilowatt hour, and Illinois customers pay about 10.7 cents a kilowatt hour. And if you go further out to either East Coast or West Coast, you'll find people paying upwards of 20 to 25 cents a kilowatt hour. So very different, and each state is structured differently. And you know, I think that there hasn't been a serious review of the regulatory process in a lot of the Midwestern states like in Illinois and Missouri in 30, 40 years.
Now you're generating capacity. Are you anticipating the necessity to go up so that you can meet future demand, or do you not think that demand is going to go up?
We plan for future demand every year. We do a load assessment, and probably at the highest time, what we do is take the peak day of every year. That's when the customers use the most electric.
Some hot, sunny
day. Usually it's in
everybody's air conditioner's cranking along.
Exactly, and we figure out what that peak demand is, and then we plan for that in the future. We put some estimates in there. We call it a planning, IRP planning process, and right now we think that there will probably be a need for capacity sometime around 2018, 2020. That may be moved back a few years because of the current economy. But we think that there will be a demand for more capacity around 2020 mark.
We got about, I don't know, 3-4 minutes left here. Quick, going back to the nuke power, are you still looking towards building one, or is that done and you're not going to do it anymore?
No, in Missouri we withdrew the legislation, the request.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying, are you still planning at some point?
At this point, we are not. At this point, we're not. The legislative environment is just not conducive to building a new power plant. Not for a regulated utility.
And yet the Republicans, who are normally business friendly, have like a 2/3 majority in the Senate and a large majority in the House, and you still can't get this done.
Well, you know, what we feel is that for us to build a power plant, you can't just push legislation through. You've got to have the governor, you got to have both parties really excited about creating, you know, thousands of jobs, building something that's going to make you energy independent for the future. If you can't get the entire political process to be behind a project like this, we feel that it's just not worth going into. For example, Georgia is just the opposite. The state of Georgia, the entire state embraces the whole concept. They were just awarded about $8 billion in federal subsidies to help build 2 new nuclear power plants in Georgia. But it's really something that's embraced by the state as not only a jobs program, but as a way to make their state energy independent by providing all the basically nuclear power that will generate enough electric for their whole state.
In the next minute or two, is there anything that you wanted to say that we haven't covered here today?
Well, I would just say that the whole regulatory processes on utilities are very unique, and it's the only business that I know of that does business the way they do. And a lot of people are critical of rate increases and that type of thing, but they really don't understand how the process works. And in both states, utility companies are capped. You don't make just any amount of profit you want. By being a regulated utility, each state caps the amount you can make. And we have to abide by their rules and regulations. And so, you know, I would just encourage people to make themselves more educated about how the process works, understand it more, and I think they could have a better understanding and better input to their own legislatures about how to make this a better process. Rather than always having this adversarial type of role where you have to ask for these rate increases, which no one wants to pay more for anything, regardless if it's electric or if it's milk or whatever. But you know, unfortunately, in our economy, cost of everything goes up, and we are no different than any other business, and we have to raise our rates accordingly. In the last 30 seconds here, you've had a change of leadership at the top of the company. Mr. Rainwater is out, Mr. Voss is in. Do you see there's going to be much difference in the way the company is being operated? Well, both Mr. Voss and Mr. Rainwater are lifelong engineers and employees of AmerenUE. I think Tom has a very customer-focused vision for the future, and I think you'll see him being very outgoing and kind of a visionary, I think, as for where he sees leading the company in the future. We'd like to have him here. Why don't you encourage him to come and talk to us? I'll mention that to him and see what he says. Thank you. And I've been speaking with Richard Mark. He is a Senior Vice President for Ameren. And you know Ameren, they're the guys that keep your lights on. And they're the ones that are actually making sure that your television you're watching right now is on. To the rest of you, we'll see you next Monday. Thank you.